Say please and thank you.
Oh, you filthy swines! Get in here, sit down. We're going to read some more news. You might like it. The one big problem I have with DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is the fact that you're not primarily using competence as your criteria to hire. It's not that you're hiring people who aren't of a specific ethnic group or anything. It's not that at all. It's the fact that you're using criteria other than competence, and I don't think that is useful for any industry, really. We should be trying to encourage competence and exceptionalism, not inclusion primarily. It's a good second place, though, I would say. So this article on TechCrunch, written by Anthony Ha, just the one laugh there, sir, no more, temper yourself. Palantir posts mini manifesto denouncing inclusivity and regressive cultures. Surveillance and analytics company Palantir recently posted what it called a brief 22-point summary of CEO Alex Karp's book, The Technological Republic. Written by Karp and Palantir's head of corporate affairs, Nicholas Zamiska, The Technological Republic was published last year and described by its authors as the beginning of the articulation of the theory behind Palantir's work. One critic said it was not a book at all, but a piece of corporate sales material. The company's ideological bent has come under more scrutiny since then, as tech industry figures have debated Palantir's work with immigration and customs enforcement, and the company has positioned itself as an organization working for the defense of the West. It's all good. In fact, congressional Democrats recently sent a letter to ICE and the Department of Homeland Security demanding more information about how tools built by Palantir and a range of surveillance companies are being used in the Trump administration's aggressive deportation strategy. Palantir's post doesn't reference much of that context directly, simply saying that it's providing the summary because we get asked a lot. It then suggests that Silicon Valley owes a moral debt to the country that made its rise possible, and declares that free email is not enough. Well, there we go, yeah. The decadence of a culture or civilization, and indeed its ruling class, will be forgiven only if that culture is capable of delivering economic growth and security for the public, the company says. The post is wide-ranging at a point, criticizing a culture that almost snickers at Elon Musk's interest in grand narrative, and at a point touching on recent debates about the use of artificial intelligence by the military. The question is not whether AI weapons will be built, it is who will build them and for what purpose. Palantir said, "Our adversaries will not pause to indulge in theatrical debates about the merits of developing technologies with critical military and national security applications. They will proceed." Similarly, the company suggests that the atomic age is ending while a new era of deterrence built on AI is set to begin. Yeah, I agree. I think nuclear weapons are very scary, and they make for interesting fear porn in the media, but I don't think they are the pinnacle of weapons technology that they used to be. I think there are other things that are percolating in the background. AI obviously is the platform from which all these things will spring, so your guess is as good as mine as to what those things may be. The post also takes a moment to denounce the post-war neutering of Germany and Japan, adding that the defanging of Germany was an overreaction for which Europe is now paying a heavy price, and that a similar and highly theatrical commitment to Japanese pacifism could threaten to shift the balance of power in Asia. The post ends by criticizing the shallow temptation of a vacant and hollow pluralism. In Palantir's argument, a blind devotion to pluralism and inclusivity glosses over the fact that certain cultures and indeed subcultures have produced wonders. Others have proven middling and worse, regressive and harmful. All true. After Palantir posted this on Saturday, Elliot Higgins, the CEO of investigative website Bellingcat, dryly remarked that it was extremely normal and fine for a company to put this in a public statement. Higgins also argued that there's more of the post than a simple defense of the West. In his view, it's an attack on what he says are key pillars of democracy that need rebuilding: verification, deliberation, and accountability. It's also worth being clear about who's doing the argument. Higgins wrote, Palantir sells operational software to defense, intelligence, immigration, and police agencies. These 22 points aren't philosophy floating in space. They're the public ideology of a company whose revenue depends on the politics it's advocating. So what was the post? We got little snippets of it there, little bits. Here we go, let's read this. This is the actual statement from Palantir. Because we get asked a lot, the technological republic in brief. Number 1, Silicon Valley owes a moral debt to the country that made its rise possible. The engineering elite of Silicon Valley has an affirmative obligation to participate in the defense of the nation. So far, so good. Number 2, we must rebel against the tyranny of the apps. Is the iPhone our greatest creative, if not crowning achievement as a civilization? The object has changed our lives, but it may also now be limiting and constraining our sense of the possible. Number 3, free email is not enough. The decadence of a culture or civilization, and indeed its ruling class, will be forgiven only if that culture is capable of delivering economic growth and security for the public. 4, the limits of soft power, of soaring rhetoric alone, have been exposed. The ability of free and democratic societies to prevail requires something more than moral appeal. It requires hard power, and hard power in this century will be built on software. 5, the question is not whether AI weapons will be built, it is who will build them and for what purpose. Our adversaries will not pause to indulge in theatrical debates about the merits of developing technologies with critical military and national security applications. They will proceed. 6, national service should be a universal duty. We should, as a society, seriously consider moving away from an all-volunteer force and only fight the next war if everyone shares in the risk and the cost. 7, if a US Marine asks for a better rifle, we should build it. And the same goes for software. We should, as a country, be capable of continuing a debate about the appropriateness of military action abroad while remaining unflinching in our commitment to those we have asked to step into harm's way. 8, public servants need not be our priests. Any business that compensated its employees in the way that the federal government compensates public servants would struggle to survive. 9, we should show far more grace toward those who have subjected themselves to public life. The eradication of any space for forgiveness, jettisoning of any tolerance for the complexities and contradictions of the human psyche, may leave us with a cast of characters at the helm we will grow to regret. Salvation and forgiveness are super important in my opinion. I'm certainly not perfect myself. 10, the psychologization of modern politics is leading us astray. Those who look at the political arena to nourish their soul and sense of self, who rely too heavily on their internal life, finding expression in people they may never meet, will be left disappointed. 11, our society has grown too eager to hasten and is often gleeful at the demise of its enemies. The vanquishing of an opponent is a moment to pause, not rejoice. 12, the atomic age is ending. One age of deterrence, the atomic age, is ending, and a new era of deterrence built on AI is set to begin. It's very difficult to actually quantify what that means, though. A giant explosion is very easy to picture and propagandize, but a system that is extremely clever and will fool a whole bunch of people is very difficult to comprehend. 13, no other country in the history of the world has advanced progressive values more than this one. The United States is far from perfect, but it is easy to forget how much more opportunity exists in this country for those who are not hereditary elites than in any other nation on the planet. 14, American power has made possible an extraordinary long peace. Too many have forgotten or perhaps taken for granted that nearly a century of some version of peace has prevailed in the world without a great power military conflict. At least 3 generations, billions of people and their children and now grandchildren have never known a world war. 15, the post-war neutering of Germany and Japan must be undone. The defanging of Germany was an overcorrection for which Europe is now paying a heavy price. A similar and highly theatrical commitment to Japanese pacifism will, if maintained, also threaten to shift the balance of power in Asia. And I think that's a trend they want to see unroll throughout the entire West, in my opinion. We should applaud those who attempt to build where the market has failed to act. The culture almost snickers at Musk's interest in grand narrative, as if billionaires ought to simply stay in their lane of enriching themselves, and curiosity or genuine interest in the value of what he has created is essentially dismissed or perhaps lurks from beneath a thinly veiled scorn. Well, I don't participate in that. I think he's an interesting chap and does lots of interesting things. 17, Silicon Valley must play a role in addressing violent crime. Many politicians across the United States have essentially shrugged when it comes to violent crime, abandoning any serious efforts to address the problem or take on any risk with their constituencies or donors in coming up with solutions and experiments in what should be a desperate bid to save lives. 18. The ruthless exposure of the private lives of public figures drives far too much talent away from government service. The public arena and the shallow and petty assaults against those who dare to do something other than enrich themselves has become so unforgiving that the Republic is left with a significant roster of ineffectual, empty vessels whose ambition one would forgive if there were any genuine belief structure lurking within. That's very true. People who actually try and stand up and do stuff perhaps should be rewarded in some way. I don't know. Supported, let's say. Encouraged. 19. The caution in public life that we are unwittingly encourage is corrosive. Those who say nothing wrong often say nothing much at all. Yes. Encourage the gobshites like myself, perhaps. 20. The pervasive intolerance of religious belief in certain circles must be resisted. The elite's intolerance of religious belief is perhaps one of the most telling signs that its political project constitutes a less open intellectual movement than many within it would claim. 21. Some cultures have produced vital advances, others remain dysfunctional and regressive. All cultures are now equal. Criticism and value judgments are forbidden, yet this new dogma glosses over the fact that certain cultures and indeed subcultures have produced wonders. Others have proven middling or worse, regressive and harmful. Well said. That's very true, and there are regions of the world that seem to be in a perpetual disarray, and I'm supposed to believe that's because of colonialism, and I'm not sure that is fair or true. 22. We must resist the shallow temptation of a vacant and hollow pluralism. We in America, and more broadly the West, have for the past half-century resisted defining national culture in the name of inclusivity. But inclusion into what? Interesting, yeah. Well, we need to maintain standards. The West is built upon a culturally Christian foundation, and it is my strident, strong opinion that the West is best. The West is awesome, and we should encourage people to adopt Western ideals. I didn't really know much about Palantir other than the fact that they were a military research company, but I liked what I read there. That's very interesting. I support that statement, sir, or sirs, or madams, zims and sirs, whoever wrote that. Very good. Yeah, we need to defend the West. The West is best. I agree with that. We need to capitalize on our strengths and try and dilute and minimize the weaknesses that are being forced into the Western world. And I think they've got the right end of the stick there. That's my opinion. Universal inclusivity without any idea or concept of whether people deserve to be included is dangerous. That's it for now. Thank you for joining me wherever you are. Make sure you hit that like button, pretty please. The only thing I have left to say is Pigwig out.
Oink, oinkity, snort, snuffle, snuffle, squee, oink, oink, wee, squeal, snort, snort, oinkity, squee. Oink, oink, oinkity, squee, squee, wee, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinkity, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 wee, 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 oh. Snort, snuffle, oink, squee, squeal, wee, snort, oinkity, oinkity, oink, oink, snuffle, wee, squee, snort, oink, squeal. Oink, oink, oinkity, squee, squee, wee, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinkity, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 wee, 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 oh. Oink, oinkity, snort, snuffle, snuffle, squee, oinkity, oink, oink, snuffle, wee, squee, snort, oink, squeal. Oink, oink, oinkity, squee, squee, wee, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinkity, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 wee, 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 oh. Squeal, squeal. Snort, snuffle, oink, re, squeal, re, snort, oinky, oinkity, oink, 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 snuffle, re, squee, snort, oink, squeal, oink, oink, oinkity, squee, squee, Re, snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, stir, stir, squeak, oink, 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 re, squeal, squeal, snort, snuffle, oink,